Well, I really think I'm very conscious of the African American community as a kind of basis for emphasis in art history, teaching, making art. I think because I came up in that environment, it was a strong, positive, impressive community that I was surrounded by. So naturally, when I started making art and studying the history of art and finding all these gaps, uh, it made me, I'm talking about gaps in the history of art in particular. I was very curious about that. There were people in the neighborhood that were making art that weren't in books and no one was researching them and giving them shows, but they had the wherewithal to still stick with it and make art. And they did have an influence. And this goes back to, now the historian in me is about to come out, but this goes back to even when Hale Woodruff was here and teaching here. He painted what was in the community. He was very much influenced by that. And I actually can remember going to Spelman and going to that little ticket booth in Rockefeller when you first come into the lobby, that little ticket booth. I don't know if you're aware that it was right there. It's an office now, but it used to be a little ticket booth. Going there and going to standing in long lines and to go into the theater and getting into the theater and the around the performances would be artwork on the walls. So you had that kind of visual stimulus that went back to when I was very young. And I can remember going to the AU annuals. Believe it or not, I was born in time to experience some of the AU annuals and seeing those tremendous crowds and seeing people buying art. And that's what made me believe and be very self-assured about the fact that when I made art, that someone would want to buy it. So it's very rich experience growing. I feel very blessed that I grew up in Southwest Atlanta at the time that I did. Well, I think that there is this sort of historical frame of reference that starts with things that happened around the AUC, but that is supported by, excuse me, personal stories of people who lived in the community and who talked about their experiences and talked about the fact that they actually had a livelihood creating things. And it's very much an impetus for other people to want to emulate that. And Atlanta has so many other things going for it, but in so many areas, Southwest, especially for that African American transplant, Southwest is still a point of connection. And I think that's, excuse me, I think that's still the case. I think it's one of the, someone told me recently, a young lady who came here from, I think, Cincinnati. I hope I have the right C in Ohio. Well, I think it was Cincinnati. But she came here and she said, you know, this is the first stop. And she was talking about Southwest Atlanta. This is the first stop if you really want to connect with the African American community, if you want to know what's going on with the African American community. And then she said, you know, you have all these legendary people who are attached to this part of the city. And it's a very important pilgrimage for young people. She's like 20 something, for someone like her to come and make that connection. And I think it's been that way for some time. I think it's been a connecting spot. I think it contributes because I think they get support. I think they get people who advocate for them, who come out of this community. I think they bring a kind of energy that sometimes I think they don't fully understand the contributions that they make by continuing that legacy of this is a place to come. You know, Atlanta to me, and this is very much the case with the people that I interact with on the Southwest side, it's a place where you can come here and inside of a year, you can establish yourself. You can be embraced, you can advance, you get opportunities. In fact, you even hear natives talking about that sometimes. I think I'm going to leave and come back because I think I'll have a better chance of making it if I do that as opposed to, but I said, but that's a good thing because as long as you have new stuff coming in, new energy, young people, I love the fact that young people come here and don't want to leave. That's a credit to something very positive and nurturing and significant that's happening when you can get young people. And the young people today, they're tough. If they want to stay somewhere, there's a good reason for it. I hope they'll stay. That's the first thing. I hope as they mature that they will stay so that they can be that nurturing spot for the next generation that comes. I hope that they continue to define it, that they contribute to that ongoing definition of what that is. I hope they continue to have, to feel at home, to really embrace it as a home place. I very much hope that happens. And I hope that they will be that voice that tells their children why it's important to be in the S.W.A.T.S. I hope they continue that. I think they will. I think there'll be enough of them that will do that it will be a very positive thing